Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind, the reunion. Let's check it out.
About my father had nothing to do with you at all. I literally just wanted to take a shower and go to bed, and that wasn't good enough.
And you didn't say that once.
It's never good enough. It's always what you want. But when you want space, it's okay. But when I wanted space, it wasn't good enough, right?
Well, it's kind of weird because they had only been in person for 36 hours. So the way that she's talking now, it's like, you know, for years now, you've always wanted your space. What is it? I don't, you know, how often did he need space from you in 36 hours? Yeah. I'm guessing that it is like this, where they're both hurting each other's feelings. They're both not listening. It escalated. He got loud. And this is true that a part of her did want to just go to bed and leave it alone, but she didn't really. He's saying, you didn't say that. And you could imagine that being maybe in the very beginning, she said something like that. And who knows? But I'm going to take a guess and say that what we just saw, that little exchange, just expand on that, both people participating in something that was toxic and not constructive for an hour. And then eventually he blows out of there.
Let's remember that.
It's
always on your terms, Tim. Never mind. I never get a word in. You just talk for like 10 minutes in circles. You literally are so long-winded and only listen to yourself.
Yeah, it's interesting to a year later. This is a year later. And they were in person for how many weeks? 3 at the most, right? So she's still having this kind of pattern because they had this pattern at the time as well. I'm forgetting which one was it him that was saying, "Let me talk, shut up," right? And now she's kind of saying, or maybe they just watched the show and she's commenting on that, right? Like you told me, it was him, right? He was the one that was like, "Can I talk? Can I talk?" And she was just having a conversation. So maybe there is some validity, but yeah, I think that it's interesting because the way that it looked the morning after and when they were in Cabo and they were having the conversation, it kind of looked, given the different thing that I've already been over, it kind of looked like she was mostly in the wrong. And I suspected he must have been also in the wrong at times, but that he was trying to be the healthy one by trying to end the conversation and by leaving or something. But it's looking like now that, well, there's a possibility that he was, not that it matters, but I don't know why I care. I guess I'm just curious. It's just a curiosity, right? But what would be the implication if I knew the answer to this question, that someone's more to blame? Would that mean I could now sleep better at night, or I could hate someone or like someone? It doesn't ultimately matter, but I guess I'm trying to understand just out of curiosity. I'm also trying to understand, I suppose, in a reaction video so I can comment. Yeah, maybe that's part of it, is that once I have at least an idea of what happened, then I can comment on it in terms of clinically, right? It's like, well, whatever happened there, we don't know, but it looks kind of like this, and therefore this. And until I have an idea of what happened, I'm just going, huh? And that isn't really much of a reaction video in my style.
Hey, I'm literally being berated here. I'm just trying to speak my truth. So I can't speak my truth without apparently yelling at you and get called a bitch. Come on, man.
Don't try to spin it like somebody's trying to make you like that, because I tried to protect you throughout our entire relationship, which is why you look amazing.
Like, why are you trying to come for me when all I'm doing is showing you love? Why the attitude? Why? What did I do?
Yeah, it's interesting, his vulnerability. He's mentioned that a few times, the love. So he would still have feelings, naturally. And it also just makes you wonder what kind of old tape is playing for each of them. Her wanting to be left alone, him feeling thwarted as he's trying to love.
What did I do to you?
Okay.
Well, look, I think it's safe to say that he felt disrespected in that moment. And I think another moment we all saw where you felt disrespected is when you took a nap when his parents came to visit. Mm-hmm. Looking back on that, why did you decide to take a nap, knowing his parents had driven all that way to see and spend time with you?
I don't think this is going to go well. Tim, I think, escalated a while back. I would not be surprised if he is like a 9 out of 10 on the distress scale. I can hear it in his voice. So I can't imagine. For once, I kind of hope that they change the subject, but they're not. It's like they're moving away from Stephen and really lingering with this. I don't think this is going to be helpful.
And do you regret maybe some of the ways you handled that day?
So what unfortunately wasn't shown is I work so much. I work in fashion, I bartend, and that night I had to bartend for the first time. We were with his parents at like 11 a.m.
I will say I'm happy that Tim is wearing socks. What is this war against socks? Your shoes must smell horrific. Socks help with that because you could wash them. And dress shoes notoriously have no breathing, so you just get swampy in there. Socks help. But I just don't understand. And, this comes from an old guy who wears socks with sandals. I'm Asian too, so I wear my Adidas soccer sandals with black tube socks that are pulled up. So who's going to listen to me about fashion?
Till about 6, 7 p.m. And I had to work at 9 p.m. at the bar till 3 a.m. And I simply wanted a nap after we had lunch. We talked.
Wow. I mean, she's entitled to have a nap anyway, as a napper myself, but wow, that's rough. She would have to work that night until 3 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, of course. Yeah. And like I said, I suspect that whole thing was Tim just grasping at straws, maybe even setting her up, maybe even going into that day, hoping, maybe he even knew, because, they had the day with her family, and Tim was really like pouring it on thick with the dad stuff. And then they had his family, and maybe he's like, oh crap, I'm going to look like crap if I was nice to her dad, and then I'm going to break up with her. So I need to find something to point at. And so I'll point at that. Or it could have been an unconscious thing, like he really did want to leave and just wasn't feeling it, but needed some way to justify it to himself. I don't know. But yeah, it's looking more and more like the criticism, especially like, this is why I'm breaking up with you. From my memory, they didn't even talk about that fight that they had where he basically broke up with her. He only talked about, you didn't text me back, and you took a nap after being with my family for 5 hours, and just before going to work for 6 hours till 3 in the morning. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
We talked for like 4 or 5 hours, and I literally just wanted 1 hour nap before I go into work. That's all it was. It was the only time that I actually bartended during our entire relationship.
Okay. Well, Tim, I know I speak for a lot of us who watched it on this stage when I say that one of the most touching moments in the entire season was watching you ask Alex's father for his blessing. And a lot of us are also having a hard time understanding how.
Wow, I didn't think they'd ask this question. I can't imagine that Tim is going to answer in a satisfactory way. I mean, we don't know what really happened, but the way that it looks is that Tim wasn't really in the relationship, at least, or even was out by that point, and yet was being extremely communicative to the family and to the father that Tim was absolutely intending on marrying Alex. So the only way that it's going to be satisfying is if Tim says something like, look, I was on the fence and a part of me wanted to get married, so I was, really trying to win the family over. I have to tell you that even while I was with the family, there's a part of me that was thinking I shouldn't be doing this because there's a part of me that thinks we're not going to make it. So I didn't know what to do, and I feel so bad.
How you did that, but then called it quits a few days later.
The engagement ended because I felt like the level of respect that I was given wasn't being given in return. Every day in this process feels like a week. What we bonded over most was how much we love our family. The entire time we met, she wanted me to show her father some respect and love, and I wanted to respect and love my fiance.
Yeah, he's not great at explaining things. He seems to be having some kind of debate or fight in his mind. Although, was he thinking that he communicated? And so in the first few things he said, he was basically saying that every day was like a week. I think he's trying to say that in the time when I was with her family, the amount of things that happened emotionally past that was a lot. It wasn't just like the next day, in essence, you know. So I think that's what he also said, that I realized that her lack of respect, unless he can somehow convince us otherwise, I don't think anyone would consider what she did disrespectful, right? But maybe to him it was the last straw.
So she asked me, and I showed up for her family because I thought this was going to be my family. I was trying to give this my all because I loved this woman, and I meant that. I felt like when it was my turn, it wasn't returned. And she said
Yeah, and there's a possibility that, I mean, given everything we've seen from him, I guess I've been operating on the assumption that he doesn't have a lot of things jumbled up in his mind. There's a possibility that he has a lot of things jumbled up in his mind, that he actually does feel like respect was on the line and that she was very disrespectful in general, and that he was operating. It does kind of fit with the power dynamics and the CB kind of obsession or just attention the two of them gave to how much power each one was having. Respect is kind of in, there's a Venn diagram there. So, yeah. I mean, he's basically saying the same thing, which is expected. And I'm guessing I'm not going to walk away with a narrative that is going to make a lot of sense to me.
She has to work, which is fine. I get it. Everybody makes a living. She didn't mention that she was in the club till 4 a.m. the night before. She didn't mention that the day after that, she didn't text me till 10 a.m. And the day I tried to warn her about her flat tire, she called a flat tire, even though I tried to tell her about her prior tire pressure. I'm trying to show love all.
Interesting. So he's now telling us something that we didn't know about. I mean, he mentioned during the breakup that she didn't reply. And she's like, what are you talking about? You mean that one thing? But now he's talking about how he had been texting her about other things, and it sounds like they weren't living together. We learned that on this season. I don't think we knew that prior, or maybe it didn't happen prior, but like and maybe it's a product of the fact that a lot of them actually don't live in DC a lot, or none of them lived in DC from what I understand it. So they were all flung around in the various different areas, and when they go back to their lives after the getaway, they start working, and they can't live a 3-hour or a 2-hour drive from work, that kind of thing. Like when Marissa was talking about the commute and all that stuff. So that's that's not going to help because, I mean, on one hand, it's like, well, you want to see how they are in real life, but on the other hand, it's not like real life because there's this added element of commuting, right? Which really would say you got to pick people from this. That really helps to have people living close to each other. Anyway, so he's saying that she didn't get back to him until 3 or 4 in the morning, and I think intimating that she was doing something untoward, or he wonders or something. And then this other time, like, she didn't text me back. So they knew wonder about some sort of preoccupied attachment or something, some kind of paranoia that he might have, or her being untrustworthy or flaky or avoidant or blowing him up. I don't know.
And you wait until the afternoon to try to speak to me. When you say we always have to talk on your terms, I've been waiting all day to hear from you. You didn't even let me know you made it home.
Yeah, wow. He during the breakup, he pointed to this one moment, but this was an ongoing thing for him. This still could be him pointing at something to point at something, but yeah, this looks more like the potential for preoccupied attachment of a constant need for reassurance that the person is there. Not that it's pathological to want someone to call you back, but or it isn't anything attachment insecurity oriented and is only that she is flaky and she is inattentive or something, and was blowing him off. I don't know, but it's interesting to hear him talk this way. It's said in a way, a tone, but he's exhibiting a lot of vulnerability. And there's a lot of pain, a lot of hurt there.
And you're supposed to be my fiance. So I'm not even worried about accountability. I'm just worried about your safety.
Okay, Alex, you were, while he was talking, shaking your head, looking over.
There's just so many things that have been said that are bold-faced lies.
Yeah, I'm going to take a guess and say that that is absolutely possible. I mean, given the way we saw the breakup conversation, he didn't have anything to say when she was like, so, because the way he was painting that whole day with the friend or with his family, the way that he was making it sound was that she stuck around for 20 minutes and then bolted for a nap and was completely disrespectful to his family and didn't do any prep, didn't care. And then and then she says, I was with your family for 4 or 5 hours. I needed to take this nap because I was going to work for 6 hours as a bartender. So I'm guessing that there is something. And then you wonder, is he distorting? Is there some kind of issue there for him? I don't know.
First off, the first thing he said, I was not out the night before. We went to dinner at Mi Vida the night before. And then
Before we met your dad, you were in the club till 4 in the morning.
I met your parents. Before I met your parents, we went to dinner, which is what you were just speaking on. You said I just showed up like nothing. So
The night before we met your dad?
Can I speak? Can I speak?
You're saying I'm lying
Can I
and making
speak?
something up.
Can I speak? Thank you.
And another face from Marshall, but who doesn't have socks on, but whatever. So another thing to note is that with Tim, he is coming unglued fairly easily, and I think that says something about his ability to regulate, and it also says something maybe about his background and his history. He is in a very tense situation. It'd be totally normal to have this, but there's a way to navigate this that would look differently, right? Where he would be able to go, okay, how do I say my point while not getting into it because it would be silly to do so. And he seems to be in high distress, which I think means that he has some traumas around. I mean, so if we listen to his language, his pleas, he is saying, I gave you love and you rejected it. You disrespected it. You weren't there for me. I think that points in a direction.
Which was the same day that he met my family. I was asking him, how do you feel? Where's your head at? I'm so thankful you read that beautiful letter to my dad. It was a very emotional day, all the things. And he answered that he had doubts. And I just was kind of taken back because I'm just like, how do you do that whole performance?
Yeah, he is looking like he doesn't agree with that narrative, but I don't doubt it. How could he go from what happened with the family to breaking up with her about a nap? It would make total sense. It would make total sense that he would be having doubts. Who knows what happened during the fight in Cabo, but he walked out. He was ready to go. He only came back to the hotel room, I think, to tell her, sorry, I'm leaving. So of course he has doubts.
And then say, I have doubts. My dad shook your hand and said, I accept you as my son. And 3 hours later, you say, I have doubts. Why? And then a day after that, we're ending an engagement. Why even get him involved?
Okay, so there's a number of possibilities here. And it's interesting because of how much I have watched this show and how much thought I give to it. Sometimes I'll talk to people that, like friends of mine who watch the show, or my hair cutter as well, and I'll say, what do you think about so and so? And the response that I get, because I'm always curious, and the response that I get is often as if someone was barely paying attention. Because of course, you're just casually watching a show. You're not noting every single statement the way that I do. And so I have an inordinate amount of familiarity with the context and of the show. So, and it's kind of interesting too, because, every season it just gets more and more complicated and more nuanced for me in terms of understanding the circumstances. And so I say all this to say that it gives me the ability to hypothesize. I imagine the first season I watched, I'm overwhelmed with just how odd the scenario is. All the different factors that they're under, including their concern about how they would come across in the edit. Of course, they would all be concerned about that to some extent. They would be weird not to be. They would have to deny reality to not be at least somewhat concerned. So we could imagine one narrative of him, having doubts, but also wondering, well, maybe, but probably not. I'm probably going to say no, or I'll probably pull the plug before the wedding, but I'll give it some more try. We'll see. And all that is understandable. Then he goes into that day with her family, and a part of him is inspired to maybe this will work, and this family seems great, and I'm being filmed, and the family are good people, and I was raised to show respect, and so I'm going to do that. And he just gets overwhelmed, and it runs away with him, and then maybe even himself afterwards would say, oh, well, I think I went a little far because I still have doubts, and I still think this isn't going to work out. But what was I supposed to do? Was I supposed to walk into the situation with the family and say, like, I have doubts? No, I'm going to respect my elders or something. You could see because it's such a weird scenario. People don't normally end up in that position. They would never go into a family event like that unless they were sure, right? So you wouldn't know what you're supposed to do. There's that narrative. Another narrative is that he knew he was going to leave her, and he's thinking, okay, how do I make sure that I don't come across like a jerk face? I'm a little worried about that fight that we had in Cabo, and maybe he was worried about that from the beginning. And maybe he left what he thought was a good relationship because he was embarrassed and was terrified of being on a reality TV show and having parts of himself revealed or something. And he says to himself, okay, I'm going to break up with her, but I want to make sure that I get enough footage of me looking like an awesome guy so that when I do break up with her, everyone will agree with me. And so I'll go into the meeting with the parents and I'll shine. I'll write the letter. Everything will look like I'm fully in it and I'm a good guy and I am respectful of my elders and I'm likable. And then I will quickly start scanning for things. I'll text her in the middle of the night. She won't get back to me, but that's okay because I'll just use that as ammo. I will note any abnormality. Oh, she took a nap, and I'll spin it, and then I will look fantastic. Little did he know that it wouldn't work very well because it's the only time he's ever been on a reality TV show, I'm guessing, and you don't know how things are going to come across. I don't know. The more I say that narrative, the more it kind of fits the data. Of course, I can't know. And I hate thinking that someone would go down that road because it's so nefarious. It's so deceptive. It's lying. It's manipulative, but possible. What do you think?
You already had these doubts. And if you had these doubts, why did we meet my family? That's what I had an issue with. And to sit here and try to be like, oh, I have so much respect for you, but you broke up with me because of allegedly a nap or I didn't do the dishes. The hate that you projected onto me on that breakup was mind-blowing.
Yeah, it certainly looked that way. I mean, that's not how I would word it, but the distortion or the shoehorning that was occurring was bizarre. And it looked that way from the outside. It certainly looked that way to her while it was happening. Because if it had any truth to it, we would have seen a different reaction from her. We've seen a different reaction from her even at the reunion when there's a little bit of truth to it. In the moment when he was saying, she's like, huh? What are you talking? Are you talking about that one? That shows that it was that astonishing to her. So astonishing that she didn't feel like she needed to get up in arms and defend herself because it was so bizarre.
It's like I killed your dog. It felt like this was a situation for you to have it out and you took it and ran with it. So what was this relationship real? Like, do you have respect for me? Because I don't feel like you do.
Yeah, I think those are all valid questions. I don't think it releases her from what she might or what she did do. but it is absolutely a viable, that was well put. She's better at explaining things than he is. Now, normally when someone asks that question, was it real? Did you ever love me? Did you ever care? Usually I would say, well, yeah, usually people do, and then they change their mind, or they still care, but they just feel like the relationship is too hard or something. That it's not a binary that is the way that it often feels to us. Someone dumped us, well, then they never loved us. And it's like, well, that's not necessarily true. And it can be very destructive to ourselves to assume that. But there is a possibility. I mean, when I try on that hypothesis that I mentioned earlier, it's possible that from the beginning, doesn't seem likely, but it's hard to know if that fits and if that's true or somewhat true, that he did make a plan or was deceiving and cherry picking. Then you have to question a lot of things. There's a version of the story where he was faking it from the beginning. There's a version of the story where he was faking it post hallway. I don't know. All right. Well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.